Hey guys, welcome to Dev Diary for the 20th of July 2018. So we have a lot to get through in this episode. A load of new changes and kind of stuff that's gone in over the last couple of days. But without further ado, let's get cracking. Okay, so to start off with, I have some good news this week. Earlier on Monday of this week, I was contacted by ComicCon Ireland, and they've asked me to, or they've offered me a stand at the Dublin ComicCon convention for this year. So it's on August 10th, 11th and 12th of 2018. I'll be in Dublin at the convention centre in Spencer Dock. I think it's on the 3rd floor, so I'll have a stand set up there. And if you want, you can come and play the latest demo of the game. So it goes without saying that I'm going to be pulling out all the stops, trying to get ready for having a good demo to bring with me. So cool, guys. With that said, let's jump right back into Unreal, and I'll show you how things have been going. So if you remember from our last episode, our goals were to get our attacks and everything hooked up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump in to the game, and we'll show you the changes. So I'm just going to full screen that. So you may notice that I've already started to prepare for Dublin ComicCon. So I've got pre-alpha Dublin ComicCon 2018 down in the bottom. You'll also notice up in the health bar in the top left hand corner, it says we're level 1 character. Other than that, I can now select my different magics. So if I just come out here into an open spot, so I fire the, you may notice that in the village I've hooked it up now so that you can't actually fire. It's kind of a safe zone, but we'll get into that a little later on. So I'm going to run out of the village so I can cast some magic. Okay, so this should be a good enough spot. So if I fire the earth, you can see that we have our earth attack. More coolly, we can put up a shield, an earth shield, which is quite cool. What I'll actually do is, bear with me a second, I'm just going to make sure that we've got some audio for that. Okay, so that should be our audio back now. So, yeah, we've got our earth shield. And if I change around, we have wind. So our wind, the tornado goes zooming off. And put up a wind shield. And we also have our water attack and our water shield. And of course my favourite, our projectile, our fireball, and our fire shield. Now, the only one that stops us from moving is our earth attack. So if I punch that, you see I'm kind of trapped in the middle of all those. Whereas if I use any of the other shields, like water, I can easily move around and I'm still using the shield. Okay, with that said, I want to introduce you to our two friends here. They're kind of dumb, but they work. So I'm going to play from here. I'm going to let this guy chase me. This is our first NPC. He's quite dumb at the moment. He just kind of runs around there. If he sees me, he might try and run towards me. Yeah, he sees me there, so he's running towards me, but he gives up every so often, and he doesn't come after me. But one way I can make him sure that he comes after me is if I hit him. Now he's pretty much vexed, and he's going to chase me around the place. This is our basic drone enemy type. and he's going to follow you around and try and hit you. So I'm just going to hit him a few times here. You can see he's doing a line trace there. You may see that orange artifact on the screen. That's a line trace. So he's tracing to my location. And there you go, he blows up, which is quite cool. So, okay, I can spawn another one in, activating the stone here, and I'm going to attack him with something slightly different. And at the moment, he's not programmed to attack or trace me from anything but the fireball. So, which is a shame, but we can fix that later. Now, also, we have a second enemy type. This guy's a basic caster. The idea behind this is that he has the same behavior as the other guy, but he can cast projectiles, and he moves a bit slower because of it. So, basic spawn effect, you can see there. Oh, yeah. And his element is water, so if I use water on him, it's not going to affect him, so I have to hit him with fire if I want to do any damage. Or I could hit him with wind or earth, but fire is the most effective. And he's gone. So, yeah, we have two basic AIs, we have all our attacks hooked up. I still have to get some animation for those basic drones, but it's nice to have the skeleton models in. I was using the basic Unreal dummy, which I can show you now. So if we bring up our content browser, and if I go to my content, enemy CPU, so you can see I had these kind of models where they were all a different color. This purple one is slightly different, I'll show you that in a minute. And then we have our two skeleton types here. So here he is, the basic skeleton, and then the caster is here. Which is pretty cool. Okay, so just to go through, I'll go through the basic drone AI for you guys. So basically he's got a move on sense. So basically if I go into the viewport, select his spawn sensing component, you'll see that green cone there. So that's his, basically, like any of you who've played a lot of PS2 or PS1 games, you'd recognize that cone from mini-maps in games. So basically that's his viewable area. So once you're inside that, he has a sense of you. So on sense, it checks to see if he's moving. If he isn't moving, then we set his the same variable back to moving, and we cast the first person character. And the reason we're casting the first person character is we want to get the location of that actor. Set that as the destination, reference it to itself, and then once he moves, on success we set his movement to nil, and back to 0 rather, and on fail back to 0. And I just have it printing sense move. Now I may have to do a little bit more work on that, but again I'm going to get into how I'll be replacing this entire system later on in the project in the coming months. So we want them to react, we want the enemies to react once they're hit, so we have a hit event. Again, we're checking to see if the character is moving. If he's already moving, the likelihood is that he has already spotted his target. So on event hit, if he isn't moving, then we start to move. We cast to the projectile this time, and the reason we're casting the projectile is because that's the type that we're going to be plugging in for our hit. So we'll get the hit location. Where was he hit? We use the trace start and end point of that, plug it into our line trace component, and that passes in then to the AI move node. Now at the moment I had on complete and on fail, or on success rather and fail, I had that set to return the boolean back to 0, but just for the sake of testing right now, I have it deactivated. And then we have an event tick. I had it printing out his health, but we're not going to be using that right now. But you can see in the event tick, is moving, false. Well, if he isn't moving, then we delay. We pick a random float in the range of between 1 and 3 seconds. We use that delay, we set the movement as true, and then we move the actor to a random location somewhere around 500 unit radius of his current position. And we have to do that in reachable point radius, so somewhere within the nav mesh that the AI spawns into. And again, we just print out a text saying that he's just rambling about, he's waiting for to spot the player. So that's basically how our AI is working. Here we can see around the village I have this red box. You may see it here. It's called, oh wait, no, that's our ocean. So here you see, it's called a whole fire zone. So if I go to the whole fire zone, browse that asset, and I'll just show you what's going on inside. Okay, so basically, on the overlap of this trigger box, we're casting to the first person character, and we're setting a boolean in there, whole fire to true. On end overlap, we're setting the same boolean to false. There's a whole fire zone boolean, and then there's a whole fire or holding fire boolean. So I'll show you a little about what's going on in those. So if I go to my first person blueprint, now you're going to notice that this has got even more complex since the last time we used it. So okay, it's quite simple really for the whole fire zone. So okay, we check input action fire, so we're going to cast a spell. In this case we'll just deal with, it doesn't matter which one, because of whether we're casting our primary or secondary, both of them use this same line of logic here. So okay, let's go through it. We check to see if we're already attacking. If we're not attacking, then we're allowed attack. If we check to see if we're in a whole fire zone. If we aren't in a whole fire zone, then we go ahead and trigger this logic here for the actual projectile casting, taking damage off our enemies, etc, etc. However, if we are in a whole fire zone, then we flip-flop. And what do we flip-flop in between? Well, in the A branch, on the flip, we're checking to see, are we holding fire? And if we're not holding fire, which is the second boolean, then we create, we cast the whole fire widget. So that means up on the screen, you may have seen that message. I'll show you again. I'll just spawn in the whole fire zone. And you can see there, you can't do that right. You can't do that now, or you can't do that here. So basically we can't fire magic in kind of settlements and civilian areas. We may not always use that, but it's a nice feature to have. So our widget comes up, it's added to the viewport, it has a delayed time of 3 seconds, and then at the end it's removed from the parent. On the flop of that then, we basically, because on our flip we're displaying the actual widget, so on the flop we want it so that if the user has another input, that we just flop and we just go straight to remove parent, we don't do anything else. And the exact same logic is used down here inside our shields, our defensive magic. So again we're checking to see, are we in a whole fire zone? If so, go up here. On the flip branch, are we holding fire? We are holding fire. So it's a basic enough script for the whole fire zone, and it works pretty good. So with that said, we'll also have a look at, you may notice that I managed to hook it up so basically we can select our different magics. So we were on earth, we're on fire, wind, water, earth, and the other way around, and they all pretty much work. I'll show you briefly what I'm doing there. So I'm going to come out of that, and if we go back to our blueprints, and if we go to content, and we want to go in and look at some of our interface blueprints, and it'll be the HUD widget here that you can see I've had it checked out, I've been working on it. So basically inside, just ignore this, this was probably an attempt at something that didn't work. Yeah, it's using an event tick, which isn't a great thing to use. You want to use as few event ticks as possible. Okay, so here we are. So in this function that our Code Ninja created, big shout out to our Code Ninja, it's get current selection. So basically this is the logic that controls what our current selection is. So you can see we have earth, wind, water and fire. Now I added a cast to first person character here, and there's also a cast to drone complex, but we don't need that right now. Just ignore that for the time being. What we're interested in here is the cast to first person character controller, and in that we have a variable. And if I just go back to my first person character controller real quick, okay, and our variable type in the first person character controller is an integer, and it's called element selected integer. And basically we're using 4 1 to 4 rather than 0 to 3. We're using 1, 2, 3 for the different elements. So 1, 2, 3, 4 for the different elements. And it casts that, changes it, it's a public variable, and basically that then you can see here we're checking to see in a sequence after we fire, it goes first, well, if element selected equals 4, then cast fire. If it's not, if it equals to 3, then we're going to spawn water. If it's equal to 2, wind, and again, if it's equal to 1, we cast earth. And that's basically ran through a sequence. You may notice that some of the transforms are slightly different depending on the projectile. So the top 3 projectiles of fire, water and wind all have the same spawning location. They all kind of spawn in at the same location. The projectile, whereas the earth, we want that to spawn on the ground. So it has a slightly different transform lead running up to the spawn actor location. Whereas with the defensive components, they all spawn in with the same transforms. So, and it works the exact same way. We're going through a sequence here. I have an extra sequence note there just in case for later on. But one of the only differences between these two really is that we're spawning in a projectile type there, we're spawning in just a regular actor here. And also, another slight difference is that we're attaching our shield to the bullet location, and the bullet location basically is this arrow here. So that's a good way of keeping our shield, our defensive magic component, attached to the player. So as long as it's alive and hasn't been destroyed, it's attached to the player. The only other difference really at the moment is that the earth component, as I showed you earlier on, it disables your movement while the shield is up because you're kind of trapped in, surrounded by these rocks on all sides. It's more of an entirely defensive shield, whereas the other, you could say like fire, wind and water, would have a slight offensive ability if NPCs were to be in the area of attack of that kind of shield. Whereas with the earth, it's just basically it pops up, we disable the movement, we stop the movement immediately, we hold for 2.5 seconds for the particle system's kind of animation to play out, and then we set the movement mode back to walking, and we set the attacking back to 0. So basically they're the only real main differences so far. We still have our punch, our interact, our select attacks, they're all the same, but the complexity is only really down here in the attack section. There's still a bit to be done in some of the other areas, but for right now I'm pretty happy with what we have. So You may notice I've done a little bit of work on the landscape, kind of getting it ready, but my main focus this week has been entirely on kind of getting the NPCs in, even in a basic way, and getting kind of rudimentary things set up. Another thing I want to talk about real quick is that if I go into my NPC, my enemy characters again, should be here, and I'll go into my basic drone. The basic drone basically receives on-begin overlap. It receives damage on these on-begin overlap events. So inside each projectile I have a separate collision primitive that is only really there to overlap with NPCs. It's not used for anything but the overlap. It has no physics on it other than just a flag to say, okay, you're for overlapping with NPCs. So our projectile attacks can be catered towards different enemies. So in this one, you may notice that we cast the projectile, the fire projectile, enemy health, and that's a float. And basically what we do is we subtract, and the float has a value of 1. So on hit we subtract 0.25 from that. And then again at the end we have a branch here. So the condition being, if the enemy health is less than or equal to 0, then we go on and play the rest of the line. So there's a delay of 0.2 seconds. We set the visibility of the mesh, which is the actual skeleton. We hide that, and then we spawn an explosion at the location of the mesh. Along with that, then we spawn a sound. We delay for 1 second. We report a damage event, because damage events can be handy, but I'll cover those maybe in a later episode. But after that, we're basically destroying the actor. So you may notice that there's one of those for each type of projectile. So with that said, I'll show you another interesting one. I said earlier on that the guy that spawned the kind of the NPC that had the ability to cast magic back at us was using water. So just to give you an idea, so you can see that fire we're minus in 2.5, but you can see for water we're actually subtracting 0. And we're back to 2.5 for the rest of them. But the idea being that because he's a water, his attacks are based on water. Water is his strength, so we don't want to be him to be hurt as much, if at all, by water. Another option here would be to have something similar in the first-person player, that when we're receiving damage from this guy, that if we're casting water at him, or let's say wind makes water more powerful, so that if we were using wind against him, let's say, and one of our attacks were to overlap with his attack, and the player was inside the radius of that it would do more damage. It would be a multiplying effect on his base element. So that's kind of where our elements and our element play come in. So that said, we're getting kind of complex with these systems here for the for our basic AI, and we're kind of sprawling out into areas that really I don't think regular blueprints are designed to do. But for now, until I can come up with a better solution, then I think I'll just hold on to these drone types for now. With that said, I had been working on this guy. You may know this guy from earlier on I was showing you. So this kind of purple dude here is called Drone Complex. Now Drone Complex is different in the sense that he doesn't just use regular blueprints. He uses Unreal's inbuilt AI system. So you can see here we have a behavior tree, an enemy drone AI controller, a drone check, and different kind of actor classes, a rapid move class, and some blackboard data for that. To be honest with you, I'm still haven't got this totally working. I can dump this guy into the scene. He's pretty dumb. He does nothing. I have a problem basically with my blackboard. But he should be chasing me right now, but he's doing nothing. But yeah, I mean it is AI is within Unreal isn't something that I've done before. That's why I kind of went with a standard blueprint kind of dumb AI just as a solution for now. I have been looking at other solutions on the marketplace that I'll go through in the next section, but for now this basic AI that doesn't kind of utilize some of the more advanced things in the Unreal AI system like behavior trees will do for now. But ultimately I would like to use behavior trees and kind of a bit more of an advanced AI rather than just these kind of drones. So with that said, I'll talk a little about some of what I plan to kind of add in upcoming episodes. So if I go to my marketplace here, okay, so I'd like to get more animations in the game, and I've been looking at MYG Flying Mage Set Volume 2. So basically these are a set of animations for kind of casting magic and things like that I think would be quite cool on our water type enemy. Another thing I've been looking at is just to kind of broaden some of the sound effects for the game. I want to get some kind of nice casting sounds and things like that that'll kind of add to the kind of depth of the audio components within the game. As well as that, as many of you may know, I was struggling with rocks for quite a while, and I then just earlier last month, STF 3D, a German company, have released these assets, which are ideal really for what I'm working on. They're the product of photogrammetry, so they're high detail, and I think they'll work really well in our environment. You can kind of see some of the results there. I think they'll work really well with our current project. And again, it will save me time from going out and either attempting having a first attempt at photogrammetry, or either doing some modeling in a sculpting package, which ultimately is how I approached rocks in the past. Added to that, I'd also I know there is some AI solutions, pre-made kind of behavior trees and AI controllers that are available on the marketplace, and I'm going to be looking at them later on in the project, maybe after Dublin ComicCon, so that I can implement a smarter AI in the future. So guys, I want to give a quick shout out to the content creators, the guys who created the assets that I purchased on the asset store. So first of all, let's go through the hands I was using. Now, I may have covered this before, but it's no harm to give them a shout out again. So Iron Belly Studios, the animated medieval first-person arms pack, really cool, worth checking out. Male and female arms, well worth checking out. They have other packs that are kind of like a ton of content here that is pretty good quality, well worth checking out. So moving on from that. The next one I'll show you is the Fire Starter Effects by Ash. Now, I've had these for quite a while, and again I probably gave them a shout out in previous videos, but again, for fire effects they're really good and well worth checking out. So good job, Ash. Back to the library for Lewis's 4 elements. So for the water, earth, I didn't use the fire attack, I kind of created my own, and for the wind, but you can see that for the defensive magic, they're the ones I've been using, and they're pretty cool, and again, well worth checking out. So good job to Lewis with the 4 elements. And for our NPCs, I got the skeleton character pack from NG. Excuse me if I'm pronouncing this wrong. MG Guillemot or Guillemont on it. Guillemont. Anyway, sorry about the pronunciation again, guys. But basically, you get 3 skeleton characters. Basic skeleton. This guy here. A mage and a warrior. Now I don't know if I'll be using the warrior, but it's still well worth having. So they're kind of some of the assets that I've been using recently in the most recent updates to the project. So guys, a lot to look forward to. I'm hoping that either my next episode I'll have a bit more of the smarter AI, maybe a bit more kind of level design done around this area. As I said, there's a big push on now to get ready for the Dublin ComicCon convention, and hopefully my next episode I'll try and do some filming while I'm there and include that in the next episode. If I can at all, I'm going to do some live streaming from the convention, which I think will be pretty cool. It might be nice for people who come up and play the game to be able to come online and see it later on. Well guys, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully I'll see you all in Dublin and you can get a chance to play the game. That's been episode 15 of Dev Diary for the 20th of July 2018. Chat to you all again. Take care.